South Africa's ferrochrome production is being displaced by Chinese ferrochrome production. And why is that? They have no chrome ore reserves of their own. That's all on the back of chrome ore exports, of which 50% of chrome ore comes out of South Africa and goes into China. Chrome ore exports. In 2011, China imported 9.4 million tons of chrome ore. South Africa provided 50% of this chrome ore into China. And if you break down that 50% that came out of South Africa, 50% comes from the UG2 producers, 20% comes from the independent chrome ore miners, and 30% comes from the integrated ferrochrome producers. So it's this unbeneficiated ore that's leaving the country, growing the Chinese ferrochrome industry, 300,000 tons, 2011, and this is at our expense. Our production was down by 300,000 tons. We have a very mature chrome value chain in this country. It provides over 200,000 jobs, 42 billion rand of GDP per annum, and we have had ongoing engagements with the government in relation to doing something about the chrome ore exports. We're encouraged with our discussions to date. We need to protect our chrome ore reserves. Government's policy is to beneficiate locally, and we want to, first of all, just sustain what we have in the ferrochrome industry. We're going backwards. But in addition to that, we actually want to grow the mature ferrochrome industry. What we have produced is a chrome ore brochure, which it's going to be available once you leave the auditorium. Every single ferrochrome producer bar one, and in fact they're not producing at the moment. There's a signatory to this. It gives you the background, the history, and the reasons why we believe that something needs to be done, and what we propose should be done both in the short term and in the long term.
Martin Creamer from Mining VT Online. Just on this question of the exports of raw chrome, I mean, we've been hearing this for years now. You say you are encouraged. I would probably, if I was in your shoes, I'd be discouraged at this point. But what gives you encouragement that the government is now going to assist and not allow the export of raw chrome, which is obviously hurting the country as a whole?
Why we are encouraged is we are in direct communication with the DMR and with the Treasury, that whole economic cluster. It coincides with the government's beneficiation plan. What we're talking about in the short term is looking at an export duty. The export duty should push up prices of the raw material in China, and hence will push up production costs, which should result in an increase in ferrochrome prices. However, we don't believe that this is a long-term solution. The longer-term solution is some sort of control of the chrome ore that flows out of the country. South Africa doesn't have enough capacity at the moment to produce all the world's ferrochrome, but if there was a control mechanism that allowed sufficient ore to flow out, that's something we're looking at in the medium term.
I refer to your response to the question posed by Mr. Creamer, in which you discussed the possibility of an export tax on chrome exports. Now, assuming that this is permissible in terms of WTO rules, how would a tax benefit Merafe?
In terms of the export tax and any proposals that we are making to government, we've tried to work within existing legislation. We don't want government to go out and enact any new legislation, because we know that takes a long period of time, because this needs to be dealt with immediately. As far as an export tax is concerned, Treasury has the power to actually impose that, and they spoke about export taxes. They will look at those in terms of their beneficiation policy. As far as Merafe is concerned and the greater ferrochrome industry, what that export tax does, and we're talking about $100 a ton, that will be paid by the purchaser of the chrome ore, if that chrome ore leaves the country unbeneficiated, which means that their input cost will increase. And remember, in South Africa, our mines are located right next to our smelters. So for every 2.5 to 3 tons of ore, we only need to transport it between 5 and 30 k's. In China's case, that 3-to-1 input, that will also be transported on a further distance. The whole objective is to give us some breathing space to increase cost of production in China. As I said, it is a short-term solution. The longer-term solution, which will take longer to sort out, is some sort of control on the amount of unbeneficiated ore that leaves the country. The beneficiation program is being run by government. They announced 10 different industries, 5 different value chains. They do have strict internal deadlines that they are rushing to meet. By the end of the year, I'm actually very confident that something very firm will come out in terms of beneficiation, not just in terms of the chrome ore chain, but right across those 10 value chains.
To what extent can this attempt to bring in a tax or to control the supply of raw chrome be neutralized by the supply of chrome out of Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe haven't even gone the export duty route. They've actually banned the export of chrome ore. In terms of the way the quotas would work, but it is a medium-term proposal, what we are proposing is that if you beneficiate locally, i.e. convert chrome ore into ferrochrome, you would get credits for that. If you sell chrome ore directly to a ferrochrome producer, you would get credits for that. And all of those credits would be used in assessing what percentage of ore can leave the country in terms of the set quota, in terms of supply demand.